Today there are many high-tech weapons that are very impressive, even horrifying and chilling. But if we were to step back in time to the mid-1800s, we would be reminded of the most powerful and effective handgun ever employed by the United States military. For over 50 years, it remained the most powerful handgun in the world. So regardless of all the astonishing weapons of today, there is one that is truly unforgettable: the 1847 Colt Walker. I'm Riveroo Bay, and welcome to my gun kingdom. We're out here at the gun range at Erie County Conservation Club this morning, and we have a special guest with us today at the Gun Kingdom. And this is John Browser. He is the vice president of Camp Perry Trap and Skeet Club. And John has a lot of experience in black powder, and he's here to talk a little bit about the Colt Walker from 1847. And of course, this model, John, is a 2009 made by Uppbeat in Italy, and it's a .44 caliber. When Colt delivered these to the military in 1847, they told the soldiers not to load any more than 50 grains by volume of black powder. And what happened was the soldiers decided more was better, and so they loaded 60 grains by volume of black powder. So if we start with 40 grains and then we go to 50 grains, how much advantage feet per second do you think you gain from 40 to 50 grains?
Well, really don't know. Sometimes you don't gain any. Especially in a pistol with the short barrel, it may not burn that extra powder.
That's a good point.
So really the only thing is to try them and see which one shoots the best.
So today we're shooting these balls here, and these are made by Handgun. So some of the soldiers used chronicles, they called them back then, but we're going to be shooting balls in here. The chronicles were shaped more like a bullet. They had a point on one end. And another thing the soldiers did that Colt didn't recommend was when they loaded the cylinder with the chronicles, instead of the balls, they would load the chronicles with the point of the chronicle pointing towards the back of the gun. Then another thing they used after they packed the powder and then the wad, or they probably didn't use the wads back in the 1800s.
Probably not. They used cloth. They
might have used a cloth then.
Right.
Okay. So once they did that to seal it off so they wouldn't get sparks flying from one to the other, they used a lard. Well, now they have a product, and this product is it's called nipple grease. It's a black breech plug.
Yep.
So it's takes the place of lard, but it's black.
Right. A little bit of waterproofing too.
Yeah, it did help in moisture,
Right.
protecting moisture from getting in there.
Because they'd have their guns fully loaded, and they might not shoot them all day long.
Now, another defect with the gun was, and Colt suggested this fix with the rawhide back then. And what happened with recoil, this loading ramming rod would fall down and jam it so you couldn't cock it for the next shot.
Yeah, it probably was something that wasn't designed in the gun and didn't realize recoil would do that.
So what do you think? Let's go ahead and load it up, right? And we've got some gunpowder in here.
You've got your...
And I would suggest laying something down underneath where you're pouring the black powder in, because it's kind of expensive. But and I pulled this off off my scale this morning. So we're going to put a charge in of 40 by volume. So first thing you do is you put the powder in. Then the wad. Then the ball. Then you take your rawhide off, come down, the ball's lined up, and you push it into the cylinder. So after that, then you would take the grease here and then seal it with the grease. So I'm going to do all 6 of them, and then we'll come back and shoot it.
I don't think those were mine.
Little high.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no adjustments on there.
More of the red?
Yeah. Tyler goes, give me more bullets.
Yeah.
I can't let Grandpa
Same
show me
hole.
up with my own gun.
Pretty same
I
spot,
like
right?
that. That's a nice gun. I like this. That's not be recoil, not bad. Definitely has authority when that baby goes off. Get the hell out of my way.
Bullseye.
Yep. Well, it definitely got some oomph behind it with 40 grain. See, I'd see no reason to ever shoot 50 in it.
Did you load one?
That's you just shooting target.
Yeah.
Ooh, that one I pulled. Neat gun to shoot. Ooh.
Bullseye.
I'll shoot at the top one this time. Whoa, why am I shooting so high now?
Well, we had a really busy day at the gun range the other day when we were firing this Colt Walker here, and I feel that we need a part 2. And anyway, I'd like to do some more shooting with the Colt Walker at 100 yards and test out the 40 grains versus the 50 grains by volume of black powder to see what the difference would be as far as accuracy goes and what our groupings would be. So if you would like to see a part 2, make sure you put a comment underneath this video and let me know. I'd appreciate it. Also, you know, when you take one of these replicas of the 1847 Colt Walker to the gun range, it's like taking a puppy to a party, because you'll get so much attention from people. Every time we fired the gun, there was people standing behind us watching us, and then after I turned off the camera, they would ask us a bunch of questions about the gun. So it's pretty popular. And you know, this gun is a lot of fun to shoot. It's one of my favorite guns to shoot, actually. And you know, there's pros and cons with it. I mean, it's black powder and you have to clean it a lot. In fact, when you go to the range, I'd suggest taking this gun. It's called gun scrubber. I'd suggest taking that with you. That'll help a lot. You know, if you're going to fire it a lot at the range, you definitely need to clean it, you know, once in a while you're there. But anyway, you know, I don't want to call this the last segment of the video because there's so much to cover with this iconic gun. And I want to make sure I get all the information I can to you on this gun. So I'll give you a brief summary what we're going to cover in this segment real quick. And first of all, we're going to go over the target. And I'm going to explain what happened with shooting with one hand versus two hands. And then also we're going over a little bit of the history of the gun, not much, but a little bit, and what I think is the most important part of the history of the gun. And then we're going to go over the loading phase again, because we didn't show how you put the grease in the gun, and so we want to show that. And then also we didn't show how to put the caps in and when to put the caps on the gun. That's important too, so we'll go over that too. And then also, you know, this gun, this replica made by Uppbeat in 2009 was used in an independent film that I produced a few years back. And make sure you hit the subscribe button, because you know, this is going to be, the film is going to be free to watch on the Gun Kingdom here when I get it completed. It's in post-production right now. But it'll be free for everybody to watch, and it's a film that everybody can watch. If I would rate it, I'd probably rate it PG. But anyway, this gun was used as a prop in that movie. And so with this rawhide that we talked a little bit about at the gun range, I made it a little bit longer than probably what they had it, you know, back in the 1800s, but I wanted it to be more dramatic for the film, so that's why I made it a little bit longer. And I made one end longer than the other end too, so it just gives the gun more an effect for the film. So anyway, those are the things I want to cover. Also, I'm going to show clips from the independent film that I did too of how this gun was carried on horseback, and also how the soldiers probably wheeled it from horseback too. So we'll show both those clips. So you want to stay tuned for this. But if you haven't hit the subscribe button, go ahead and do that. And if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button too. But and leave me a comment. You know, because there's going to be more. There's going to be more future content coming up. But you know, leave me a comment to what you would like to see. You know, either with the Colt Walker or something else. But anyway, let's get to it, and let's talk about the target first of all. And these are dirty bird targets, so you get or splatter targets, whatever you want to call them. But when the bullet hits the target, you can actually see it better. So we shot back at about, I'd say 25 feet that you saw, and those were all our shots. But let me pull these stickers off here and go over what went on here. So John, that was with me, we shot at both targets. We shot at the upper and the lower, and you can see here that we were hitting the sides of the bullseye, not completely in the bullseye. Well, this one did, but you know, and this was with one hand. So when we went to shoot with two hands, we were hitting up here, here, here. So, and it's really a coincidence that both of us, you know, hit the side of the bullseye with holding it with one hand. So, and then we have this one here. Again, I'll pull these stickers off here too. But here again, we hit the bullseye and the sides of the bullseye. And again, with two hands, we were hitting outside of the bullseye. But we're still within close range in pretty good groupings. And the gun, the longer we fired the gun, the dirtier it got since it's black powder. So anyway, those are the targets. So this is a Uppbeat replica of the 1847 Colt Walker, and they did a really good job making the gun just like the original one was. Underneath the cylinder you have the brass trigger guard, and now some of you might think this is a Cimarron, but this is actually not a Cimarron. Cimarron does sell one like this that has they call this finish a distressed look. But I actually did this finish myself on this Uppbeat. And the way I did is I took the gun completely apart and I soaked it in vinegar water. I don't remember how many days I actually soaked it in vinegar water. I think I had to do it a couple times to get everything, to get all the bluing off of it, but it did come with bluing on it. The way you can tell the Uppbeats is down here below on the base, below the cylinder, they have a stamp with either numbers or letters, and these have letters of CD, and that means it was built in 2009. So it is a Uppbeat, even though it looks like a Cimarron, and you might wonder, well, who's Cimarron? They're a company that puts these together. They buy the parts from Uppbeat, and then they put them together here in the United States. And they don't use all Uppbeat parts. They use some American-made parts. But since this is a Uppbeat, this is made in Italy, and it's made with all their parts in Italy, and it's put together there too. So this is not a Cimarron. This is actually a Uppbeat. Now, one of the flaws, like I talked about here, talk about a little bit about the history here. You know, when they said one of the fixes was putting a rawhide around this loading rammer because it dropped during recoil. Now the new gun, these replicas don't do that. In fact, you saw us shoot it without the rawhide tied around it. Then the last few shots, I put the rawhide around it. But these won't drop under recoil, so you don't have to worry about these. And also, you might have heard where the cylinders cracked when the soldiers shot them, but they were, number one, they were packing them with 60 grains of by volume of black powder, and I kind of think how they probably, you know, loaded it with 60 grains. And but anyway, these new ones are made with new metals. You know, the technology has improved over the years, so I wouldn't say they're made better. They're just made with different materials that can withstand a little bit more of the recoil from the loading rammer, and also the failure of the metals failing. So you won't, if you buy one of these replicas, you won't have to worry about that. So, but yeah. All right, and then my thought is on the why some of the soldiers might have loaded more than what Colt recommended, which was 50 grains, is they might have had one of these on their horse with them. And when you go to pour this into a cylinder, I mean, you're not measuring it exactly, even so, though some of them say when you tilt it up, it'll put so much powder in. But you don't know exactly how much you're getting in there, so there's probably spilling over a lot of it. And they were really pushing the Chronicles that they used, or the balls that they used. So that's probably how they overloaded them. I don't know. You know, I've never loaded one of these on horseback. I've shot these replicas off of horseback, but I've never tried to load them on horseback. So they were always loaded, put in the saddle holster before I got on the horse when we made the film. So how these came to be, these Colt Walkers, Samuel Walker, who was in the military, and he wrote to Mr. Colt, and he asked him if he would make him a pistol that would take down a horse. Now you probably might wonder, why would you want to take down a horse? Well, when they fought off a horseback back then in the 1800s, if you shot the horse, the rider, the soldier that was riding the horse, would be rendered useless. He would either be trampled to death, or he would be an easier target to get. He doesn't have much mobility once he's off the horse. So, and then another thing is, horses are bigger targets too. So they just didn't kill horses with these. They also killed the men that were on the horses too. But if they had to take a shot and maybe make sure they could get one of the two out, they're probably going to take a shot at the horse. So it was nicknamed the horse pistol. And it had other nicknames too, but I think the most important one was the horse pistol. But anyway, so anyway, he wrote to Mr. Colt, and he asked him if he could make him a gun that was powerful enough to do that. So anyway, they collaborated together, and they came up with this handgun that came to be the most powerful handgun and most effective handgun in the world for over 50 years. And it's probably closer to 80 years. I'm not sure exactly. The gun that replaced it was the 357, but there's some that would argue that depending on how you loaded the 357, how you loaded this, they were comparable. And then some will say that there was a 44 Magnum that took its place. So I'm not a historian, so I don't know exactly, but I know it's probably closer to 80 years that this gun was the most powerful handgun in the world. So anyway, Colt produced 1,100 of these in the original guns, and the reason they went with 1,100, the 1,000 was sold to the military, and then the other 100 was sold to civilians. Now, when Colt produced these guns back in the 1800s, they didn't have their own manufacturing plant. They had to lease another one to build these handguns. So after the sales of these guns, they actually produced enough revenue from the sales of these guns to the military and also civilians to where they could build their own manufacturing plant. So that's what helped. This gun actually helped Colt start their own manufacturing plant. So anyway, if you were to buy an original one today, they're selling for close to $1 million, and there was one I think that was sold for around $1.8 million, but that was all original. The parts were never replaced on it, I guess, but most of the original ones, had to be sent back. I think there was, over 300 that had to be sent back during the military involvement with these guns. But they sent them back to have parts replaced, cylinders replaced, things like that. So let's go over what the dimensions are, how much it weighs. The overall length of the handgun is a little over 15.5 inches. And then the barrel itself is 9 inches long. And it weighs a little over 4.5 pounds. The trigger pull is supposed to be 5.5 pounds, but it doesn't feel that on these replicas. Maybe the original ones were 5.5, but that would be okay, because if you drop them off a horseback or something like that, at least they wouldn't go off if the hammer was pulled back all the way. Something that's kind of unique with these guns is the rear sight is actually on right here. You can see it. So as you pull it back, I don't know if you can see that, but right there is how you line up that front sight with. There's actually a groove cut in there. So that's something that's unique about the gun. Now, it was designed to shoot 50 grains of black powder per volume. It's a 6-shooter, and it's a single action. Okay. I'm not too sure about the handle. It doesn't seem to be wood. I think I read somewhere where it was like a hard rubber back in the 1800s. I'm not sure. Leave a comment if you know exactly about the handle and what it was made of. But everything else is that Uppbeat did here and Cimarron did when they built their guns too, was this is the exact replica. Everything is exact the way Colt made it back in the 1800s. So it's the real deal, other than being original. And it's something that can be affordable. I think they're around $500, maybe a little less. This is also a 44 caliber, and the feet per second, give or take, is around 1,100 feet per second. And the foot-pounds at the muzzle is around 500 pounds. So that pretty much covers specs of the gun. So let's move on to the film and show some footage of how these were carried on horseback. So, okay, so this first one that we're looking at right here, this is how they were carried in a saddle holster, and usually it would hold two, one on each side of the horse. Now this other part of the clip that I'm going to show you is where it was on the other side of the horse as well. Now in the film we only had one Colt Walker, so there was another handgun put in its place to make it look like there was two Colt Walkers on the horse. Okay, so let's take a look at this next clip. And now this is how the gun was drawn from the horse and then wheeled from the horse, and see how quickly the horse can turn around. And that's why they used them in battle, because they were so quick. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go over is how to finish loading the Colt Walker that we didn't cover at the range. So let's go into that and see what's involved with the grease and the caps that go on. And then also I would recommend when you shoot this handgun or any black powder handgun is to wear leather gloves, and I would wear one on each hand. And this just would protect you in case there would be some sparks that fly off from one of the chambers from the cylinder. So it's a good idea, and of course eye protection. But gloves are a good idea. Okay, so let's go over the loading process here. And first of all, what I want to show you before we start loading is these are the fired caps. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's what they look like. And 80% of the time you won't find these. They'll be flowing off somewhere. But there'll be a few that you might have to pick off. They'll be kind of lodged on the nipples down here, and they're hard to see once they've been fired because they turn black. But they'll be kind of lodged down there, and all you do is just take your fingernail or just tap on it and see it falls right out in your hand. But the most you'd have to do is just take your fingernail and just take them off like that if you see them there. But before you load the new ones on there, you definitely want to make sure they're off of there. Okay, so you might want to take a pocket knife with you in case one gets lodged back in there. That's always possible. So first thing we want to do, of course we're not going to load any powder in the house, so the first thing you want to do is put it to half cock. Okay, that way you can move the cylinder. Okay, and we took the rawhide off, of course, so we can work the loading rammer. So, okay, so from the very start, what you would do, and I recommended this at the range too. We'll get these fired caps out of the way now that we looked at them. First thing you want to do is lay a piece of, I would use like a piece of white paper so the gunpowder shows up. So basically it's going to catch anything that you spill when you're loading this measuring device here. So if you can see the different amounts that you can put in here, but there's 50 right there. So, and then there's 45 and 40 and so forth. Well, let's say we were loading 50. We would have it set there, and then you just turn that to its tight. So, and at the gun range I showed you this that I took off my scale, and you can see there's still some gunpowder in there. So, but anyway, this this piece of white paper underneath will catch anything that you spill. And if you do spill any on the white paper, then, you know, this stuff is expensive. At least you'll be able to, you know, put it like this and then pour it back in there. So that'll help you save some gunpowder. So anyway, let's just pretend that we're going to put in gunpowder. And so what we would do is we would either take this, and by the way, this is the triple F black powder. Now there's a double F that you can buy too, but this stuff is more dense, and I suppose it burns a lot faster too. So which is important, especially when you load to 50 grain. And like John was saying, that being that it's only a 9-inch barrel, it might not burn the total amount of the 50 grains. So you don't know, but maybe we'll test that at 100 yards and see. So anyway, what you want to do then is get yourself like a sandbag to prop it up on. And we'll use this one here. So, okay, so now what I would do is I would turn this upside down, shake it a little bit, and then pour it out, pour the gunpowder in there. And then what you would do is you would pour it into the measuring device here. Okay, and then once you got it level with that, whatever amount you set, very first thing you do is turn the cylinder, and then you would just pour that amount, whatever you decide, in there. Make sure you get it all in there and push in, you know, little pieces that you might have there. Okay, then the next thing you do is load your wad. Okay, and that's what those look like. And so you'd put that over the top of it and then push it down in there, and then you would take your ball and put the ball on top of it. Then you would turn it, so we're just going to pretend that we put the ball in there. We would turn it to line it up with the loading rammer. Bring that down. And you know, it doesn't need a lot of strength. And that's about where it ends up with 40 grains, is about right there. So, and you don't need to put a lot of strength into it to push it down in there. It seats very nice. Okay, so what I would do is I would load all 6 that way. And you notice that I have six balls laid out. So I know when they're all loaded, and I also have 6 wads laid out too. So, and then these are our caps. Okay, so once we get all the gunpowder, the wads, and the balls in there, then the last thing we want to do, or the second to the last thing we want to do, is take our grease right here. And I'm going to show you how actually you have to put this grease in here, and you have to do it quite generously, otherwise you get gaps in the chamber. But what I do, I don't know if you can see this or not, but get a good amount pushed up in there, and then just take it and lay it right across there like that, and then take your finger, but see the gap I have right there? I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's right there on the edge. That's what happens a lot. And see, you can still get a spark flying out of there, so it takes a good amount to put on there before you don't see any gaps. Okay, so right there is good. That's pretty good. See how your finger kind of pulls it away from the sides of the chamber, and then you get your gaps. So I just go ahead and lay some more in there. Get a good amount. But if you start with a good amount first, see, that's pretty good right there. There's not many gaps there. Okay, see how you can kind of smooth it out with your finger there. Okay, so there you go, right there. It's pretty good coverage, and then you can just kind of wipe off the edges like that. But you want to have a paper towel handy to wipe your hands off. So what I would do is I would turn the cylinder and put the grease in all 6 of them. Okay, now you could fire this thing without the grease, you know, and I'm sure the soldiers in battle time, they probably didn't do that. So, but to be on the safe side, get all 6 of them. Okay, so that's how we put the grease in. Then the last thing we want to do, and this is where it's really important to have the gun pointed downrange when you do this now. So I like to use a sandbag and get all the grease off my hands. But we can lay it on the sandbag now, or pretend that we're on the sandbag. Okay, and we got it pointed downrange. And then what we do is we line up, see this gap in here? We want to line that up with the nipple so that when we load these things with our fingers, now they make these little gadgets that you can buy, and they're actually pretty easy to put the nipples on there, or put the caps on the nipples. But see, what we'll do is I'll just take my thumb. Now if it's cold outside, yeah, that's really tough to put on there, but see, that's all you need. Just kind of snug it up there, but watch how it turns around and it misses it. See how the cylinders, you can just turn it around in there? Okay, so I would load all 6 of those like that. Okay? And again, have the gun pointed down range. But see, you just take your fingernail and they just pop right off. You know, especially the fired ones. That's all you do. And then once you have all 6 on there, it's ready to go. So you would lay the gun down like this, point it down range. If you want to use a rawhide on it, then you can put that back on there. But with these Uppbeats, you really don't need the rawhide. And so anyway, that's how you load the Colt Walker. So I'd like to thank John Browser for going with us to the gun range and firing this Colt Walker. And it's always nice to have a friend to go with, to shoot with, and it makes it more fun. And when you take one of these puppies to the gun range, you get a lot of attention. So it's always nice to have 2 people, one to load and one to talk to people. It's kind of hard to load the gun and concentrate and talk to people at the same time. So you know, you want to be safe. And I want to thank all my new subscribers, and if you just subscribe after watching this video, I thank you too. And hit the like button down below and let me know if you like the video and any other comments. I read all my comments, so I appreciate it though. But anyway, you know, let me know if you want a part 2. We'll be glad. I don't think we'll have to twist John's arm to go back and shoot this thing at 100 yards. And we'll use the sandbag here to shoot off of at 100 yards. But if you'd like to see it shot off, you know, offhand, we'll do that too. So let me know, and hopefully we see you in part 2 of the Colt Walker here. So it's a fun gun, and we enjoy shooting it. So, but anyway, thanks again for watching. I appreciate it.